Hello, everyone, and welcome back to CyberGuardians. I'm your host, Marcellus, and as you can see, we are currently in my studio. Back behind me is my PC, my gaming setup, or my workstation as well, gaming/workstation setup. But this will be the last episode in season 3.1, and it's crazy how fast this year has already gone by. And I really appreciate you guys watching my content. And if you're new, make sure you subscribe or follow my Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Pandora, and also CyberGuardians Unlimited, which is also on YouTube. This episode is going to be one of the most important episodes because this is going to go over the fundamentals of what a device does when you simply connect to the internet. And you'll be surprised on the things that go on every single time you hit that search button. Refreshing the page, browsing the web, watching the video, things like that. So the point of this video is that, or audio, if you're listening to a platform that doesn't support video, is to make this simple. I'm not going to throw in a bunch of words that people don't understand to make them feel intimidated and stupid. I don't do that. The whole point of my podcast is to make everything simple. Not everything is perfect, but I can assure you in this episode, that's my number one goal. And this will not only benefit people that are curious on what goes on when your device connects to the internet or the network, but for people who are out there in the cybersecurity, IT industry, or trying to be a network administrator, or whoever's in school, or if you're a professional that needs a refresher, this is for you. And this definitely benefits people that are interviewing for jobs, because one of the first questions that employers are probably going to ask you is, okay, give me a run through on what happens when a device simply connects to the internet. What happens? This is what this video is about. And as I go on and create season 4 and 5, this video may not be out there forever. So take it for what it's worth. So we're going to go on my PC right now. I think it's updating. Don't know what's going on because I didn't tell it to do anything. Making a video, of course. But so we're going to be using Kali Linux. We're going to be running Kali Linux. And then we are basically going to use a tool called Wireshark to dissect the packets that are transmitted through that device. And I'm going to explain everything as we go just to see what happens. Most of my explanation may not be through Wireshark itself. It's not a Wireshark video, but you can learn a few things from that if you're curious about it. But it's to make everything simple so that you understand what is going on every single time you browse the internet or connecting to a device, even like locally within your own network. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this started and end this season with a bang.
Hi. So I guess you're wondering, who the heck is this guy? I am Shadow. A shadow of a very intelligent young man who has volunteered to join the CyberGuardians. His job is to become the avenger of defending the world, protecting the internet. So who is this brilliant young man, this brilliant avenger? Let me show you his light side.
I am Marcellus, and this is CyberGuardians. Okay, so we are currently in Kali Linux, and we're going to go ahead and begin our lesson. So we got our commands here. Fair warning, this is the part of the video where I talk a lot, but it's the most important part so that you can comprehend the basics on the steps that a device takes in order to connect to the internet or network. So fair warning, the best part really is to walk through but I'll try to make it as most interesting as possible when explaining these different subjects. Go ahead and we actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and do it in terminal instead of clicking on it, just to kind of make it look cool. Why not? Let me resize this, and we're gonna do concatenate lesson. CD desktop. Yes, CD desktop first, and then concatenate lesson. All right, let's go ahead and turn this up. And it is huge, but we're gonna get through this. Some of this I might skip over. All right, so this is the final episode of season 3.1. You guys already know that. So let's go ahead and begin. So the device connects to a network. How a device connects to the internet. When a device connects to the internet, it first has to connect to a network. That could be Wi-Fi, Ethernet, or cellular data. For this episode, I'm going to explain it from the perspective of a device connected to the internet, and I'll later demonstrate it inside, of course, we're in Kali Linux using Firefox and Wireshark. So before a device can visit a website, it needs basic network information. Usually the router gives the device the information automatically using DHCP. DHCP stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. DHCP helps the device receive information such as an internal IP address, a default gateway, DNS server information, subnet information. An IP address stands for Internet Protocol Address. An IP address is used to identify a device on a network. A default gateway is usually the router. The gateway helps send traffic from the local network out to other networks, including the internet. DNS stands for Domain Name System. DNS helps the device find websites by translating website names into IP addresses. In simple terms, DHCP helps the device get on the network. It helps answer questions like, what address should the device use? Where should this device send traffic? What DNS server should this device ask when looking for websites? I really need to get a new mouse scroll wheel. It's kind of unresponsive. So before a web page ever loads, the device first needs to know how to communicate on the network. All right, so step 2, internal IP address versus external. So now let's talk about the difference between an IP address and an internal IP address and an external IP address. An internal IP address is used inside your local network. For example, your phone, laptop, smart TV, and gaming console may all have their own internal IP addresses inside your home network. An internal IP address may look something like 192.168.1.25 or 10.0.0.15. These addresses help your router know which device is which inside your home or office. An external IP address, also called a public IP address, is the address of your network. Is the address your network uses on the internet. So inside your home, your phone may have one internal IP address and your laptop may have another internal IP address. But when those devices go out to the internet, websites usually see the public IP address assigned to your network by your internet provider. A simple way to think about it is basically like this. So your internal IP address identifies your device inside your local network. Your external IP address identifies your network to the outside internet. So if your device is inside a home or office, your router helps manage the traffic between your internet devices and the outside network. Step 3, NAT and internal devices share one public IP. Another important term is NAT. NAT stands for Network Address Translation. NAT allows multiple devices inside a local network to share one public external IP address when they access the internet. For example, your phone, laptop, smart TV, and gaming console may all have different internal IP addresses. But when they go out to the internet, websites may see the same external IP address from your router. NAT helps translate traffic between the internal private network and the public internet. A simple way to explain NAT is basically this. Inside your home, each device has its own internal address. But outside your home, your router represents the network with a public. When traffic comes back from the internet, NAT helps the router know which internal device should receive that response. Let me say that again, actually. When traffic comes back from the internet, NAT helps the router know which internal device should receive that response. So if your laptop visits google.com, the router keeps track of that connection and sends that response back to your laptop, not your phone or smart TV. NAT matters because it helps many devices share one public IP address. It also helps explain why your internal IP address and external IP addresses are not always the same. Step 4. Important protocols working in the background. Before a website loads, several protocols may be involved. First one is DHCP. DHCP stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. DHCP helps the device receive network information such as an IP address, gateway, and DNS server. The next one is called ARP. ARP stands for Address Resolution Protocol. ARP is used inside the local network. ARP helps match an IP address to a MAC address. Let me say that again. ARP is used inside the local network. ARP helps match an IP address to a MAC address, which stands for Media Access Control. A MAC address is the physical address of a network device. A simple way to put it is, if my computer knows the router's IP address, it still needs to know the router's MAC address to send traffic to it on the local network. So ARP asks, who has this IP address? And the correct device responds, that IP address belongs to me. Now for this episode, ARP is important to know because it helps with local network communication. But in this live Wireshark walkthrough, I'm going to keep the activity focused on DNS, TCP, TLS, HTTPS traffic on port 443, and possibly the QUIC protocol if it appears. Because it requires, so for me to do that demonstration, it requires you to potentially see what's going on my network. So I don't really want to expose that information, but there are examples online that you can look at. But whenever you see the ARP address resolution protocol used in Wireshark, it will say something similar to what was said earlier, basically saying who has this IP address, and it responds blah 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 blah. So but yeah, in this live Wireshark walkthrough, yeah, it's gonna be down to these other protocols. The next important protocol is DNS. Probably the most thing you really need to remember when you're explaining what a device does to connect to the internet. DNS stands for Domain Name System. Excuse me. DNS translates website names into IP addresses. The next one is TCP. TCP stands for Transmission Control Protocol. TCP helps establish a reliable connection between two systems. Then we have TLS. TLS stands for Transport Layer Security. Basically helps encrypt and secure communication between the browser and the website. Then we have HTTP, which is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. HTTP is the protocol used by browsers and web servers to request and send web pages and resources. Then we have HTTPS. HTTPS stands for Hypertext Protocol Secure. HTTPS is the secure version of HTTP. HTTPS uses encryption, usually through TLS, to protect the communication between the browser and the website. Then we have UDP. UDP stands for User Datagram Protocol. UDP sends traffic without setting up a connection the same way TCP does. TCP is more like making a phone call where both sides confirm they are connecting to each other before talking. UDP is more like sending a message quickly without the same setup process. By itself, UDP is faster and simpler, but it does not provide the same reliability features that TCP provides. Finally, we may see QUIC, QUIC. QUIC stands for Quick UDP Internet Connections. QUIC is basically a newer transport protocol used with HTTP 3, which stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol version 3. Traditional HTTP traffic commonly uses TCP. QUIC uses UDP instead, and it was built on top of UDP to give web traffic some of the speed benefits of UDP while still adding security, reliability, and modern web performance features. So if QUIC appears in Wireshark, it doesn't mean anything went wrong. It's just it's sometimes used, especially with Google and things like that. But yeah, the device uses DNS to find the website. So now let's say a user opens a browser and types in google.com. To us, it looks simple, but the device does not connect to websites by name. Computers communicate using IP addresses. So before the browser can connect to Google, the device needs to know what IP address belongs to google.com. And that is where DNS comes from. DNS translates a domain name into an IP address. A simple way to think about DNS is like the contact list of the internet. Like a phone book. Instead of remembering long IP addresses, we type a name, and DNS helps the device find the address behind that name, basically. So when I type in google.com, the device asks what IP. So when I type google.com, my device asks what IP address belongs to google.com. And then DNS responds with an IP address. Now the device knows where to send the request. The name is for basically us humans. Instead of us having to remember a number, it's a name. The device starts a connection. Once the device has the IP, it can start communicating with the web server. If the connection uses TCP, the device and server perform what is called a three-way handshake. TCP stands for Transmission Control Protocol. TCP is designed to create reliable connection between two systems. The 3 steps of the TCP handshake is basically SYN, AUK, and AUK, which stands for SYN stands for synchronize, and then AUK stands for ECK stands for acknowledge. In simple terms, it works like this. My device sends SYN, or synchronize, which means can we connect? The server responds with synchronize acknowledge, which means yeah, I hear you. Can you hear me? Then my device sends acknowledge, which means yes, connection confirmed. That is the TCP three-way handshake. It confirms that both sides are ready to communicate. This is important because TCP keeps track of communication, handles missing data, and helps make sure information arrives in the correct order. So when we see TCP in Wireshark, we are often looking at connection-based communication. Step 7. The connection is secured with TLS and HTTPS. After the connection is established, most modern websites use HTTPS. HTTPS stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure, as we already explained before. We can go ahead and skip over that. An important part is that users still need to pay attention to the domain name, the page content, and whether the website is legit. Because sometimes you'll see and we're going to actually talk about this through here. So we know that, so Wireshark may show that my device is communicating with the website. It may show the source, destination, protocol, timing, and packet sizes, but it should not simply show the actual web page content in plain readable text. That's the point of encryption. So you won't be able to see it. And it does not automatically mean the website is safe. A phishing website can still use HTTPS. All right, simple summary. So to put it in a nutshell, so when a device connects to the internet, it goes through a basic process. First, connects to a network. Then it receives network information through DHCP, which stands for Dynamic Host Configuration. The information may include an internal IP address, gateway, and DNS server information. The device may use ARP, which stands for Address Resolution Protocol, for local network communication. The router may use NAT, which stands for Network Address Translation, to help internal devices share one public external IP address. Then, when the user enters a website, the device uses DNS, which stands for Domain Name System, to translate the website name into an IP address. After that, the device connects to the destination server. If TCP is used, it may perform a three-way handshake. TCP stands for Transmission Control Protocol. If QUIC is used, it may use UDP and newer connections setup instead. One thing to note is that TCP is connection based and UDP is connectionless. So that's another term to know as well. QUIC stands for, of course, Quick UDP Internet Connections. QUIC is a little bit, it's a different ball game than a typical UDP setup. So that might be an exception because technically it is a connection that it uses, even though the protocol itself is connectionless. UDP stands for User Datagram Protocol. Then HTTPS helps secure the web traffic. HTTPS stands for, we know that. HTTPS commonly uses TLS, Transport Layer Security. Finally, the browser requests the web page, receives the response, and displays it to the user. That is the basic process. The reason this matters in cybersecurity is because attackers can target parts of this process. They can abuse DNS, create fake websites, intercept weak traffic, scan for open services, or trick users into trusting malicious links. So before learning advanced attacks, it helps to understand how normal communication works first. And that is why this is the most important episode on CyberGuardians, in my opinion, that I posted so far. So in this next part, we're going to go through the Kali Linux and Wireshark walkthrough. Well, we're already in Kali Linux. So I'm going to go ahead and start the program, and we're going to follow along and see what results we come up with when we do a simple search for google.com. All right, welcome back. This is the part 2, the last part of this episode. This is going to be the Wireshark walkthrough. So before we begin the walkthrough, I want to point out something important. When we look at the traffic in Wireshark, the first thing we need to know is which device is ours. So that would require us to go into the terminal and type in ifconfig. That way we can see the Kali Linux machine's IP address, because it's going to say source and destination, and sometimes it might be flip-flopped. It might say the source might actually be the destination and the destination might actually be the source, because when packets are sent, sometimes the computer communicates, as we talked about with the TCP, the handshake, the three-way handshake. It's going to be communicating from the client, which is the Firefox browser in the computer, to the server, and the server is going to be communicating back with different information. So it's going to be flip-flop. So that is why we need to identify this. And also, let me see, what else did I have? And I believe that's it. So let's go ahead and run that command first. We're going to go into terminal and type in ifconfig. And this, the inet is our IP address. And then we're going to go ahead and go to Wireshark. Okay. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and kind of get it ready for us here before we begin the capture, so that we don't capture too many packets that are unnecessary. So as soon as I hit start, I'm going to hit enter for the Firefox browser. All right, start. Oh, enter, and then stop. All right. So let's see what we got here. Yep, just as predicted, we're gonna see the QUIC protocol being used. And as you can see right here, this is our source IP address, and this is our destination. And you can see user datagram protocol. Like we said, that's UDP. And we also got the destination port as well. That's the number 443, which is HTTPS. There are different port numbers for different protocols, which we can get into another episode, but HTTPS is 443, HTTP is port 80, or sometimes 8080. And then the source port is going to vary depending on the computer, whatever ports that are available that's running on the computer. Typically it's within a specific range of port numbers, but that's for an entire different video. But yeah, so we got the QUIC protocol. Let's go all the way back to the beginning and look at how many packets that were generated within. This is from 1. This is the first one. All the way down here is 391. That's a lot. And that shows you how much really, like, all that happens within a split second. All that information going through your computer. Imagine like going online, watching YouTube, or pulling up a web page. Like, the number is just absolutely insane. But do keep in mind that these packets, each of them aren't really that big. It's not a huge jumble package. Like you can see here how big the packets are. It's not really that big at one time. It's a lot that happens in a split second. But yeah, this is the QUIC protocol. We're not really going to dive into that. We're going to really focus on the TLS. We're really just here to look at it. This is not a Wireshark tutorial. This is just to show you what happens when you, every single time you click enter, you type in the name of the domain and the URL, and then this is what happens. So a lot of this is probably going to look complicated, but once I make a video of the Wireshark tutorial, it's going to be much easier to really understand. But all you really need to know is that it's sending information back and forth from source to destination constantly. And if we would have kept this running, you would see this, it would just keep going and going and going. I'm just kind of taking a look here to see. So, okay, so OCSP, that is the Online Certificate Status Protocol. We'll talk about that in another episode, but that's actually something that's very, very important to know. You see that happen commonly. And you got TLS here, version 1.2, transport layer. Let me see if there's anything that I could explain to you within a matter of time. I just want this to be simple. I don't think I can explain this to you. All of this, of course, this would take a lot more time. But Wireshark shows you like the time, and basically I'll start with the basics. So the time is right here. Now the time depends on the format that you put in there, so you're probably not going to understand what this means. But you can set it to where it's like a date or a specific time of day when it was sent, and then when it was delivered. It looks like this is from milliseconds, I'm presuming, based off of the decimals and the numbers that I see. And then of course source is from and destination is to. And when a packet comes from somewhere else, when it's coming to the Firefox browser, you'll know that like the destination becomes the source. Like I said before, if I haven't already said it. And then this is if we scroll over, this is the length of the entire packet. And you can see the handshake. I think that's the handshake. Don't quote me on that one. This is not a tutorial. There's a lot of things to know about Wireshark, but you'll see all this information pop up. And that's basically it. But this is what happens, like I said, many, many times before. Every single time you hit enter, or even loading different websites or downloading, you'll see all sorts of stuff. And it's really important to know how to organize this information. Like if you click on this box right here, this is the filter. So if you know what to really look for, like let's say you're trying to look for something malicious, like like your computer connecting to a malicious website, which is a good example to use because many of that happens. Well, if you're in the cybersecurity field, there's a chance that you might have to use Wireshark, and it's important for you to know the different. There's a certain syntax you have to type in to this filter to filter out all this information, because there's millions and billions of packets out there. You're not going to be able to just go through them all and find it. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. But yeah, it's very, very important. That's why you're not going to know. See, here's the thing. I'm not trying to intimidate you guys. You're not going to know everything. Like, even me, like I've used Wireshark dozens of times. Am I certified? No. I'm pretty good. I'm sufficient to really know what's going on. It's best as far as my knowledge is, but I don't know, even if I was certified in Wireshark, I'm not going to know every single command, like every single command that's possible out there. There's many, many commands, many filters that are out there. And sometimes if you're in that workforce, let's say you're in IT or cybersecurity, you're not expected to always know everything to that point of level, because we're all human. So that's why it's important to know how to use your resources. Go online. Sometimes you have to go to Wireshark, or whatever their official website is, and type it in Google, type in how to filter this, how to filter that, and you will get a feel of like your most common commands that you use is just going to come second nature. The more you use the tool, the more you understand how it works. But really, all you need to understand, and I say this again, all you need to understand is how things work. You don't need to know every single possibility, every single malware or situation that's happening, because they're all going to be different. If you know simply what DNS means, you know what TCP means, you know every single time when you're looking certain information up, there's going to be a three-way handshake. It's going to make things easier. And if you don't know the basics, then how are you going to know, like, the more, like, going through Wireshark and knowing what every single feature, like frame numbers, you're not going to be able to really know, like, understand that stuff. You can look it up, sure, and type it in Google, but you have to understand how the internet works before you can pluck around messing with all this stuff, because it's a lot of information. And I don't want to say it again because it's going to sound like I'm a broken record player, but I think what's interesting, and we're going to do this experiment, is I want to show you guys something. So I want you to kind of think about this question. What do you think is going to happen if hold on. Oh, there's different IP addresses. Okay. Let me see if we're going to use this one. So what do you think would happen if I were to plug in the IP address and type it in? Let's go ahead. Let's find out. Let's see. 51. There we go. we're back at Google. So you type in the IP address, like we said. Basically, if you learn more about how URL works, which we can cover in a different video, well, I'm not gonna go over that. But like we stated before, what computers understand is IP addresses. The DNS server, all it does is it's a phone book. You say, hey, what's their name? Who are you trying to call? I'm trying to call, for example, let's say I'm trying to call Karen or whoever. All it needs to know is who the name is, and it knows what to look up for. It'll look up the phone number. Well, in that sort of sense, we're not talking about phone numbers in like right now, but it's like a phone book. Same thing goes for here. You type in www.google.com. It's like basically saying, okay, this is what you want. This is where you want to go. This is the domain you want to go to. Let's go ahead and find the IP address for that domain so we can get this client connected and redirected to the right location. It's the same exact thing. And of course, typically you don't have to really worry about it pre-populates the HTTPS and all that stuff for you. But yes, that's exactly how it works. But yeah, so that's going to conclude this final episode of CyberGuardians Season 3.1. It's been a heck of a run. I really appreciate you guys' support. If you know anybody that's interested in cybersecurity or IT, anything technology related, be sure to share my podcast with them on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, also CyberGuardians Unlimited, available on YouTube. And don't forget to tell them to follow or subscribe, because I really would appreciate that. That shows me that you guys are listening and you are interacting with the content. But this has been a very smooth season, and I will be working whenever the time is. It might be a few days from now, it might be a few months from now, who knows. But I will be working on Season 4, making that really interesting, and hopefully it will go a lot smoother. Not saying that Season 3 was not smooth, because every season that I go through is a lesson to me. And if you're somebody who also has like a podcast or like a YouTube video or YouTube channel, is what I meant to say, you're probably, it's the same process. You're gonna learn from mistakes, and you get constantly better and better as you continue to learn. And that's the point of being in this field, is to continue to learn regardless, because things aren't going to stay forever. We got AI, we have technologies evolving, so let's continue to learn, keep doing what you're doing. And you guys have been very, very wonderful. Glad to have you as an audience for me to not only showcase my knowledge, but to help spread the word to others. And part of the mission is not just me, but it's also you guys, because you help spread my word to others by telling your friends or people that you know about this podcast. But enough said, I'm going to go ahead and end this Season 3.1. I will see you guys in Season 4. And as always, stay safe and stay secure.